So I never thought that I would be a mathematician, and I had any special talent. Maybe even now, I don't think so, but I might say that I was good enough, because I got almost always the grade 5 was the best. So almost always from mathematics I got 5. So in that sense I was good, and also I could help some of the students who were not good in mathematics, actually bad, in return for some service, but I was not special at all. I didn't take part in any competition. I feared also that if I don't learn well enough, and then I won't be a good student, then my father will not be satisfied. Yes, but fear is everywhere. I mean, almost every student has a fear, yes, that if I don't perform well, then there will be consequences. My case is not special at all. When I was in the elementary school, 13, 14 years old, then I really wanted to be a soccer player, because at that time Hungary was on the top of the soccer world. In 53, definitely. We defeated the English in England, which has never happened before that. Yes, so many children wanted to be soccer players, and I was very, very weak physically too, so I didn't have what it takes. It was just a dream. There are 3 of us brothers, and when our mother died in 48, then we went to the boarding school, and then we stayed there for 2 years, and then our grandmother took us back, and then we stayed at home. But when I was in the 6th grade elementary school, then again we went back. I went back to boarding school, and also my brothers. In the high school there was one teacher, a mathematics teacher, who impressed everybody. He had extremely good sense of humor. I believe that he was the best Hungarian mathematician at that time. I didn't know then the outside that there is something else than the high school teacher. He was good, he was funny, he helped us. He was actually a very strange person, maybe I shouldn't say, but he liked, maybe like many men, women. And then at that time, the thing, what he did, then he always gave flowers to the actual girlfriend. So, and we were the ones who actually provided him with the flowers, then, because there were many gardens around. We lived in the mountain, not a mountain, a small mountain, and a lot of gardens. So at night we went, and then we stole the flowers and gave to the teacher. It was right it was not without any risk. Once we were caught, and after that we never went to any garden. But that's an old story. But without him, most probably I wouldn't be a mathematician. When I was in the high school, then I studied biology, because my father wanted me to be a doctor. So I was preparing not for entering in the ELTE, which is a university for sciences, but rather I wanted to go to the university for the doctors. And actually I started to study there. And after 3 months I realized that this is not for me, and I was a dropout, so I finished my study there. My father was very sad, and I understand it, but I was really sure that this was not for me. If you are a doctor, it's not the same as if you are a mathematician. A mathematician can make mistakes and then correct it maybe later. but the doctors make a mistake that's much more serious. So I also was afraid of the responsibility of the doctor. Not only the subject, but the responsibility too. When I dropped out of the university, then of course I had to find some work to support myself. And so then I went to a factory. And I didn't have any, of course, special education. But in the factory there are two kinds of people. The ones who have, they are the craftsmen who have a knowledge, and then they have a very special education. But I was just moving things around because I didn't have any education. Because I wanted I went to somewhere else, to the university, and then later I wanted to be a mathematician. So no, I just moved the things around, and sometimes they were very heavy. But I was satisfied because the work hours were 6 morning, from 6 to 2 o'clock afternoon. So I had, after that, I had a lot of time to go around and do whatever I wanted. I'm still happy that I work like that. So, and then I knew different things which usually mathematicians really don't experience. And then after 2 years, I could start my study as a mathematics physics teacher at the university. And my friend, who already was at the university, my high school friend, who convinced me to go to the university. But it's half true, because he wanted to convince me. And then I wouldn't be taken to any university like humanities, not. Once I left the university for doctors, I had no other chance. So maybe I didn't know, but I was forced in some way. First year I was not admitted, and I had to try a year later, then I was admitted. Actually, I am not sure that this is true, but I was not taken even in the second time, but there was somebody who was in the committee. He was not a mathematician, a physicist. And then he argued that maybe I should be taken. Without him, my future wouldn't be the same. And then after the 5th semester, we had a right to change our direction and trying to be a mathematician. So we had then a special education after the second year, so in the third year. So we had these great professors there, and only 25 out of 150 students went to study mathematics. It was in '66. And then in Hungary there was a system. Then if you wanted to have a dissertation and some specialty, then you could be a candidate and then later doctor of science. And for candidates, we were supposed to study 3 years, and then in these 3 years you write the dissertation. And then at that time in Hungary, a lot of students went to Russia, because Russia offered a good education in some specialty, not of course with everything, but mathematics was one of them, and the Russian school was good. And then so quite a lot of Hungarian mathematicians went to study to Moscow. So, and I was one of them. I wanted to go to Gelfond, but actually I went to Gelfond. They were it was a bad luck, they were at the same university at that time. And then I paid for this mistake, actually, very badly. And Gelfond was a number theorist, which I liked very much. Actually, that was the only thing which I know to some extent in mathematics, number theory, not analysis, nothing, number theory. And Gelfand is a completely different kind of. He was a founder of many branches in mathematics. So he had a very wide view of mathematics, not me. So I wanted to be number theorist, and Gelfond visited Hungary. And we agreed that I would go to Moscow, and then I would be his student. But unfortunately, Gelfond died. It was in the summer, and a month later, Gelfond died. So I went to Gelfond. But he was very generous, so he let me to write the dissertation from combinatorics. I didn't have to write the dissertation about his area or some topics taken from his interest. He let me to do what I wanted. He was very generous in that sense. But I cannot say that I have any particular way of thinking. Most probably, like many other mathematicians, I just start to meditate on things that approach this way, that way, try to connect as always, what you already know, and then maybe you could use this or that, and then sometimes it helps, and if it helps, then you with that help can solve the problem. Most of the time, you give up. So, and maybe the most important thing, maybe if you do research, the ability to give up and try it again in a different way. But if you get used to the failure, then after that, if you work on something else and you fail, then fine, not such a big deal. It's bad, but it's not the end of the world. And you have to understand that many times, maybe most of the times, the failure is there. Especially in mathematics, when you start to work on problems which are open problems. So what are your chances to solve it? So most of the time, very little. So I didn't count exactly, but I am sure that most of the time I failed to solve the actual problems which I have been working on. Very few of them I could solve. I can work while laying in the bed or walking. So these are the two positions which I have when I am working. Actually, there is a short story that our daughters went to the school, and then they had to write an essay that what does their parents do. And then she wrote that my father is laying in the bed and closing the eyes and working. And then my wife Anna was called to the school to explain that you have to tell to your children then what their parents are doing. So Anna went to the school and said, yes, every word of the sentence was right, that this is the way how I am working. So laying in the bed and then trying to think about the problems. I have at home a huge whiteboard, which is my blackboard, and then I write on this board just the main things, so that I could the next day when I come back to the problem, so I would remember it is easier when you just see the basic steps, or at least the ideas what you had before. When I just finished the university and I was a combinatorist, then there was a Paul Erdős, who had a very big influence on me and on the others too, on other students too. So therefore I started to work on his problems. So and then Paul Erdős had many conjectures, most than any other mathematicians. And many of them were very good conjectures. And then later, when this all turned out to be important, well, some of them were not, but he had over hundreds and hundreds conjecture and many good ones. So it really moved combinatorics without Erdős, Paul Erdős, most probably the combinatorics would be different now. It is important in general, very important in general. Then you go and then you see some other places, you meet some other people who are thinking differently, so exchange is extremely important in general, and then I'm very much for it. But in my case, I didn't gain too much for going into US except then financially, and then we are still very grateful for this possibility, because not every Hungarian had at that time this chance to go to US and work there. But as a mathematician, because I am a combinatorist, and then in Hungary the combinatorics were very strong. Actually, maybe the strongest area of mathematics which they cultivated, most probably because of Paul Erdős. So if I stayed in Hungary, I would had I stayed in Hungary, I would have done the same thing. So in that sense, I am a computer scientist, and I have been working on problems which are very much related to actual computer. Most probably, combinatorics wouldn't be the same now without the computers. People say, and then they are right, and I share this opinion, that the combinatorics was almost second-rated mathematics. But after the computers, combinatorics and algorithm theory is now a main area of mathematics. So computer helped us a lot and of course, not only for this, but for another is very, very, very important. We are living in the computer world. I only dictate sometimes if I have to write some opinion about this or that, but other than that, I don't use computer. It's bad. I decided that maybe I should learn, and then maybe still, this is my opinion, then sit down and ask somebody to help me to learn something. It's crazy, my attitude. And then in this time, I don't know how to manipulate the computer. It's crazy, completely crazy. I worked on graph theory, and graph by definition is a network, yes? So there are the edges, and then you have the vertices. So this is exactly what the network is. So if a graph theorist has some result in graph theory, then most probably you can say that he has a result in network theory. So, and then in graph theory it's very important then how the graph evolves if you add new vertices or you add new edges, and with some given probability. And that is what most and you even might take away vertices or edges. So this is how it happens in the real life. So therefore, the evolvement and then how the graph is created is very much like the network, even the real life network. Of course, there are differences, but yes, network theory, it's a strong statement, very much related with graph theory. Of course, there are different domains, but well, you can consider it a domain in graph theory. But I'm very happy when they sometimes claim that what I have done is connected with network theory and helps to understand this or that. Very interesting to see that many of these mathematicians which we know have something else seriously doing it. Yes, you can learn a lot about mathematics, and so about mathematicians who are expert in some area of art, painters, movie makers, and so on. A lot of leading mathematicians, so like their hobby, but are not described it more than a hobby. It's their second life. The beauty is an important part of mathematics, just like in every other science. And because many the general public, most of them, believe that mathematics is something which is definitely not nice, so you cannot find beauty in it. It's just mathematics. And unfortunately, this is the generally shared view in high school, and which is very bad. Because at least one would like to achieve this goal, that they think even if they don't, if they are not good at it, then at least then it is nice, it is something what they miss if they don't learn. Apart, of course, the mathematics is just like every other science, is very important in the real life, in application and so on. But beauty is there, and it should be emphasized, especially in the schools, because then maybe more students would not be afraid of mathematics, because I experiments, and then just the students don't like mathematics without studying it. Already there is this idea that, okay, the mathematics, well, get over it, and then so this would be the first important things, just to show that there is more to it than what you have to study in the elementary or the high school. There is an element of beauty of it. Very hard to do it, yes, of course, and for the teachers to show it, because, well, let's face it, well, if you give exercises, no, that is not the first thing what comes to your mind, then it's beautiful. Yes, you have to solve it, but yes, there is this underlining notion of beauty. Mathematics is now such a wide subject. Yes, you have to study. Even if you feel like, okay, now I should start to work on some problem, but then mainly study, and then like in some percentage of your time try to solve problems. But study is the most important when you are 18 or 19, 20, and so when you are young. That is the best time when you can study, and then you can learn a lot. Then everybody is born with some talent. The question is whether you can find it. What is this talent? What was given to you? But talent is not enough. Talent, well, I am now saying completely trivial things. Yes, everybody would say almost the same thing. Yes, talent, and if you are lucky, and you can find, and this is what is my talent, and that is what I can do best. Very hard, most probably not. I don't have, of course, statistics, but I would guess then most of the people don't find what is their talent. And of course there are different reasons for that. Most probably you cannot even afford it, because you just have to live, you have to earn, you have to support family, yourself, and so on. It's a lucky thing then if you find it, very lucky.